This is The Speaking Show. I'm David Newman, and you're tuned in to the #1 podcast for speakers, consultants, and experts who want to speak more profitably. I'm here with the man, the myth, the legend, the Rock Thomas. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing really great. Super to be here.
So you have quite the empire, but even before we talk about the Rock Thomas empire, give us a little bit of a backstory of your professional adventures and what brought you to doing the work that you're doing today.
Well, I guess for 20 years of my life, I worked hard on a farm as a carpenter and doing manual labor. And then I shifted gears and got into sales when I met my first kind of mentor who said, "You're working really hard, but not very smart." Then I got into real estate. I was really bad as a realtor for 1 year. And then through the coaching, got pretty good. Bought the company, took it from 94 salespeople to 275 in a 4-year period. Took it from 300 million in sales to over $1 billion in sales a year. And then realized that 80% of success comes from mindset and from psychology and the ability to reframe things. So I wrote some books and started some teaching and coaching, and it's morphed into mastermind groups. And today I get the pleasure of working with people and helping them realize their potential.
That was an extremely concise description of 30 years of really hard work.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So let's talk about when you first started your speaking and coaching and training business. On day one, was it just you? And give us a quick snapshot of the early days of that transition from business owner to mentor.
Yeah, great question. You know, what happened is I fell in love with Tony Robbins' work and his ability to use NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, to help change people's state, perspective. And when I learned that perspective is limitless, you can look at things in many different ways, I started to get excited because I realized I was looking at life a bit like a pessimist. I was looking for the problems rather than the solutions. And then when I started to look for the solutions and become a problem solver, people started to be attracted to me, and they started to ask me to help them with their problems. Then they started to pay me to fix their problems. And that excited me because I liked the idea of adding value and becoming wealthy. And then I just used what I was teaching. And I remember my very first course, it was called Inside the Millionaire Mindset. It was a 3-day weekend course with board breaking and cool stuff like that. I had 13 people there, and I think I charged $400 for the entire weekend. I was super stoked. And then I just kept on adding to it and tweaking it. And there's still a few negative people out there. So there's always something to do.
You may have job security for life, multiple lifetimes. Tell us a little bit about, I love the $400 for the 3 days. I'm guessing, Rock, it's probably a little bit more expensive today.
Yeah, typically we do about $3,000 for a weekend.
There you go. Tell us a little bit about getting your sea legs. I mean, when you started speaking, when you started coaching, when you started these 3-day weekends, it's not easy. I mean, I think a lot of people look at what you do, look at what I do, and they go, oh, they're having fun up there. They're a natural born speaker. They're a natural born leader. This looks easy for them. And no one looks at the work and the planning and the strategy and the practicing and all of the mindset work that you had to do to get into a position to convey this very powerful transformational experience for them. So tell us a little bit about how you were getting your sea legs and some of the early missteps and some things that went wrong and some things that went right, and then how you multiplied that going forward.
Yeah, well, we've all heard the 10-year overnight success. And I think for me, I just started small. Actually, back in 2001, I guess, I took Tony Robbins' cassettes, Get the Edge. We listened to it for an hour in the office with 6 of us. Then we talked about it for an hour. And then we had an assignment for a week for the group. And then I brought another group in and I listened to the same thing and did the same thing. And I did that 3 times a day, 5 days a week. So I could finish Tony Robbins' sentences. I understood how people were absorbing or not absorbing information, how they were coming back a week later with their exercise. Because remember, I had 270 salespeople. I offered them to do, very intimate mastermind sessions. Virtually most people signed up. I did it for free, but what I was learning was I was learning the content. And then when I started to do my events, I really just ripped off from Tony and others almost word for word what they did. I'm shameless in saying so. I didn't have enough confidence to do my own thing. And I just copy pasted different pieces of his events and other people's events. And of course it worked because it's time tested, for years from them. And then, like if you play the piano, play the Beatles song and you got it down pat, then you can twinkle and add a little flair here and there. I started to realize that I could weave in my own personal story. And then there was something that happened to me with my kids on the weekend that was relevant. And I told that, and people related to that even better. And it morphed like that. But I still, as I practice to do things, talk in the shower, talk to myself, rehearse. I'm out in the garden doing work and I'm practicing a chunk, a piece. I will discuss with people. My kids hate it sometimes when I'm at the table and I'm like, all right, so let's go around the table and say, what were the 3 things you learned today? And they're like, oh God, please, Dad. But it's a way of life.
Let's go back to sort of the beginnings of the business. Who was your ideal client then? What was the transformation they were looking for? And then fast forward to today, who's your ideal client today? And what's the transformation they're looking for?
Interesting question. I think just because of proximity, the ideal client was a salesperson because I was in that field. And what they were looking for and what people always say they're looking for, which isn't what they're looking for, is increased sales. And what they're actually looking for is to master their own emotions. People struggle to get themselves to do things that need to be done, whether it's cold calling or putting up a new web page or making a decision to hire somebody or to run a meeting better. It comes down to this mindset piece and this fear that they're not enough and they won't know how, or they'll fail, or if they have too much responsibility because it works, etc. So what they need is they need help mastering themselves. And so I got pretty good with that because of all the people I studied with. Today, my client is somebody who is, how there's most people don't really love their job?
For sure.
So I find people that are dissatisfied with their 40 to 50 hours a week, and then I help them discover what is more in alignment with a meaningful, purposeful life. And then I help them create some passive income vehicles. Along the way, we're still working on personal mastery, but we're working mostly on wealth mastery and on leadership skills. So they understand how to, activate themselves a bit more. They understand what their limiting beliefs are around money. So we help them become better stewards of their money. And then we help them cast a vision for what really impacts them, what gives them meaning. So they might go from a CPA to an entrepreneur that has 28 Airbnb properties. They might go from somebody that was working for GM to become real estate salespeople and does house hacking, buys homes and puts students in them and makes cash flows from that. So we get people much more entrepreneurial and get them doing things that actually make them feel good about today, not waiting to feel good at 65, which pisses me off.
What a great episode. Wowza. Tell you what, if you want to ramp up your revenue as an expert who speaks professionally, you should really check out our free online training at doitmarketing.com/webinar. There's the old joke about the fisherman, right? That story about the fisherman who wants to just play with his kids and play music. And then the MBA, the entrepreneur says, oh, well, you can have a fleet of fishing boats and you can do this and you can do that. Then you can wait till you're 65 to retire. And that's when you play with your kids, eat fish on the beach, play music, make love to your wife, all these things.
Yeah. And he says, no, that's what I'm doing already.
Exactly. That's the punchline of the joke. Exactly right. Now, tell us about this mastermind program. Because I spent some time on your website looking around. It looks really cool. It's called the M1 Mastermind, which reminds me of a BMW that has an M1, M3, M5. What is the M1 Mastermind and what makes it awesome?
I learned, David, that through all my work with seminars and events is that people don't transform unless it's sticky in a community. And a community creates accountability because we all want to belong, connect, and matter. So when you find your tribe, you actually access dormant resources within your nervous system that allow you to do more, be more, reach for more, not want to be left behind. And so we found this secret sauce in getting people that have common goals. And the common goals with M1 is to become a whole life millionaire. So the three major areas, and there's these subcategories, but three major areas are passive income. There's many ways. You've written books, you've got residual income from that comes in. You did the activity once and you get paid on a regular basis for that. Most people think it's for other people. We teach them that it can be for them. It could be online product sales. It could be solving a problem by teaching on YouTube. It could be real estate. It could be stocks, whatever. So number one is help them become financially free so they don't have to work, but they get to do what they love. Number two is make sure that their health stays in check, that they have high levels of energy and they're taking care of their body and their mind and their emotional energy levels are high. And the third piece is not to give up their relationships. I'm guilty of, like my father, becoming a workaholic and then, getting divorced because I didn't pay attention to that part of my life. And I thought, had I known better, had I looked at the world differently, I could have had it all. And so we teach people what are some of the things, the mistakes that I made and others made that, who wants to be 50 years old and have a heart attack and be divorced, but be rich? That's not what people shoot for. A lot of people end up there because they didn't have a better strategy. So we say, hey, if you can pay attention to all these areas and you can become a whole life millionaire in this community with this curriculum, with these affiliations with other people. So whatever the person wants to succeed in, I know somebody who's really good in that area and I can direct them to that resource. I have another mastermind called Go Abundance with 300 multimillionaires. There's somebody in there that teaches people how to write books. There's somebody in there that owns 2,000 apartment doors and knows everything you need to know about apartment doors. There's somebody in there that knows about strip malls, student housing, stock market, flipping properties, running a podcast, etc. So whenever we get enough in the group that want to go down a lane, we create a product for it or we create some content or we introduce them. So it's really about if you want to succeed and you're the type of person that has a decent work ethic and you've got some curiosity around learning, then we're going to help you fast track.
Now, I know you're associated with Mind Valley, that you're connected to those folks who do amazing, incredible work. Is what you're describing that you have all these sort of modules and courses and curriculum, all of which are clustered around the key values and the key habits that you want your folks to walk away with?
Yeah, 100%. So there's definitely a component of online training. But what we found out, David, is that, and Mind Valley learned this also, is about 4 to 7% of the people that buy an online course. And by the way, it could be $39 and it could be $40,000. It doesn't matter. The human spirit has trouble completing without accountability. So we make accountability part of it because I say to people, I don't want your money, I want your success story. That's what gives me joy now. There was a period in my time when I was running my real estate offices where I probably selfishly wanted their money and maybe even, acted like I was all buddy chum, but deep down inside, I was just trying to pay the bills. But today, yes, of course I like money. And of course I like to become as wealthy as possible so I have more choices. But what juices me is when somebody actually goes through the process and creates a transformation. So the accountability, information without accountability is useless. If you look at just what we can find on Google, David, you could Google anything. You could take almost any course. But people still have not found a way to become wealthy and free and happy. So the information is not enough. But the community with the modules, with accountability, and we gamify it with scoreboards and fun prizes and stuff. People have fun doing it. They meet new friends, and then they come to some of our events. It's being fabricated so that people are forced to succeed.
Now, you mentioned gamification, you mentioned some contests and the community and a little bit of positive peer pressure. Your team, do you use some kind of coaching software in the background? Do you kind of, have faculty meetings about, Bob hasn't shown up for the last 3 weeks. Someone needs to check up on Bob and get Bob back in the saddle. How do you handle that just from a client management, client accountability standpoint?
How did you know Bob was behaving that way?
There's always a Bob.
There's always a Bob. So exactly, everything you just said. All of those things, we have different gauges to determine whether people are on track or off track or falling behind. And we use something called SEC, support, encourage, and challenge. So depending where they're at, let's call it a marathon race toward the goal that they want, because we don't tell people what they want. We ask them what they want, but the system helps them generate it. Some people want to run a marathon. Other people want to write a book. Somebody wants to lose 20 pounds. Somebody wants to put on 10 pounds of muscle. Somebody wants to get married. Somebody wants to start a new relationship. So you put them into the system, and the system itself creates the results. So yeah, after 3 weeks, Bob might need that phone call, or he might get an email responder, or he might get a tickle because he's falling down on the chart of points, or he might have one of the coaches or pod leaders, as we call them, say, hey, man, I haven't seen you for 2 weeks on the weekly pod call. What's going on? So support, encourage, and then sometimes you need to go, hey, listen, are you going to step up? Are you going to make this happen? Or am I just going to hear another story as to why, you're incapable of getting what you say you want? So all of the things you mentioned, 100% right.
Tell me, because you also have a fantastic podcast out there, which is what brought the Mind Valley analogy to my attention. Tell us about your adventures in podcasting and how that started, and a little bit about the show and what the goals are.
Yeah, so a couple of years ago, I came out with a goal cast video. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's been seen now by 100 million people. And I had no idea it was going to go so viral. And it's really the story of, me on the farm and having this link to suggestions that people around me were giving me, that I was skinny, useless, stupid, dyslexic, ugly, etc., and how I took those on and how it disempowered me going forward until a new programmer came along and gave me some new perspectives. And I rewrote my own programming, and I was able to come out not working hard, but working smart, not feeling ugly, but feeling ruggedly handsome, not feeling like I was stupid, but feeling like I could actually write a book, etc. So when that went viral, the whole concept around the words that follow, I am, follow you. How are you describing yourself? If you say, I am lazy, highly unlikely you're going to be springing up out of your couch, out of your bed and dominating, things around the house. But people do it unconsciously, David. So we bring a level of consciousness and awareness to the suggestions that the world has given people. And then for you to have the right to filter some of those out. Just because somebody said you're stupid and you're not going to amount to something doesn't mean that that's a truth. And so now we shine a light on it and we say, is that true? And the person goes, God, no, that was my grade 2 teacher that said that to me, or my broke uncle. And I don't think that's true. I don't like that. That doesn't work for me. It's not helping me. We go, okay, well, let's rewrite that part. Let's get together. And we kind of go through the different parts of people's personality or how they see themselves. We rewrite them. And on the podcast, I just keep on bringing people on that show examples of that had the same thing happen, because we've all had shitty programmers in our life, because there's no course for parents on how to be good programmers. So they're all going to download their crappy software to their children, not because they want to, but because they don't know any better. So that's the idea behind the I Am movement, is to lean into a new version of yourself and to be able to capture what the true essence of who you are.
Hey, good looking. Are you currently getting paid to speak? Would you like to ramp that up? We can help. Book a confidential speaker strategy call with our team at doitmarketing.com/call, and let's see what we might do together. The call is free, but the results may be priceless. And I got to give you props, and people need to check out the podcast. They need to check out Rock's website, the programs, M1, everything. Going back to the podcast for a second, you had some pretty kick-ass guests right out of the gate. And we're not going to drop names unless you want to drop the names. What was your secret to getting the big names in episode 1 or 3 or 5? Totally unproven, right? You weren't unproven. The podcast was brand new. How did you leverage some of these relationships or connections to get these rock stars into your first 20, 30 episodes?
Yeah, great question. And thanks for noticing. Because I had my mastermind group going, I had a mission that I shared with these people. So Marianne Williamson, I just reached out to her and left a message with her team, actually, and left a little bit about my mission to get people from unhappy jobs to happy places, and to create better fathers and mothers so that they don't mess up their kids. And she responded to it. She said, cool, I'm down. Robert Herjavec was a guy who spoke at one of my events that I hosted. So that was fairly easy to get him. Vishen Lakiani, I went as a participant to his event, got to know his team, and then was interested in speaking for him. So I flew out to Malaysia and went to visit with him. He wasn't there, so I visited with his staff. And I guess he just thought, if this guy's willing to fly across the world, maybe I better pay attention to him. So I think it's the same principles as all success. Is Winston Churchill said, success is remaining enthusiastic in spite of the setbacks. I just don't take no for an answer. I keep on knocking at the door. And sometimes, by the way, I've knocked at a bunch of doors. Like there's a bunch of doors people haven't said yes to yet. But some of them, they open on the first knock. They're okay. I've jumped on some people's podcasts that just out of the sheer enthusiasm for me to be on there, they're like, listen, I'm starting my podcast. I'm nobody, but if I have you rock on my podcast, it would so help me and it would garner some credibility. And I'm like, sure, I'll do it. Somebody did it for me. I'll do it for you. I can't do it for everybody. But so it's a bit of all of that.
Wow, what a great story. And just in case people were not paying attention or they went to the kitchen to get a snack, Marianne Williamson, 2020 presidential candidate, and of course, very successful writer, poet, amazing human being. She has profound thoughts, profound spiritual connection to something bigger. Not sure if she was a great presidential candidate, but what a fantastic human being.
Yes.
By the way, those two things may be mutually exclusive. Fantastic human being over here and any sort of presidential candidate, red, blue, purple, doesn't matter. I'm guessing the things you have to do to become a presidential candidate might make you less than an ideal human being. But we digress. Yes. So this is really, really cool. Now, obviously, we're recording this in the middle of this COVID-19 situation.
Yes.
I'm going to do the hashtag I am. I'm not going to use the C word. It is a situation. It is an external condition. Correct. Under which some people are thriving and doing great, better than ever. And some people are obviously suffering. We've lost loved ones, sickness, death, etc. But that's a condition. That's not about you or me or so on. How are you shepherding your tribe? How are you shepherding your tribe through this situation to keep them focused on what matters most?
Well, you said the key word, what you focus on. And, good is available, but crap is more available now. You just turn on any news station, any channel, in fact. There's no longer sports available. There's no new movies being produced per se. So there's a lot more news of negativity being available. So what we talk about is get your snippet that you need to make sure you're not ignorant and you know what's going on. Then shut that off and direct your focus to adding value. And that's the biggest thing. So double down on adding value, become better at online, processes, Zoom and things like that, so that you can communicate with your team, et cetera. Care about people. And then again, support, encourage, and challenge people and start thinking about how do you want to come out of this? You probably are familiar with the 4 stages of learning, and I won't teach it, but in the second stage is when you don't know what you don't know, and life becomes difficult. It's frustrating. You're not getting progress. You're discouraged. Well, that's the phase we're in right now. And what I teach people in my coaching is this is the time when you increase your energy. This is when Michael Jordan increases his energy. When the Detroit Pistons were beating up on them and they couldn't win, they didn't go and take the summer off. They went to the gym and they got in shape and they got bigger and they fought back and they dominated. This is a time to do exactly that. This is about a wake-up call. It's an exposure for you in your finances, your health, your wealth. The people that are vulnerable right now are the people that have not been taking care and putting money aside for a rainy day. I'm sorry to say it, but people have been smoking and not exercising are the most vulnerable right now because their system is vulnerable to dis-ease. I have no fear about getting COVID. I have zero fear because my body is not a body that wants to host a disease like that because I take care of it. The people that have not taken care of their body and don't take care of their mind are ones that should be afraid of it. But that's years of practice and habit. Now, if you didn't know and you are struggling, my sincere condolences to you, but this is a time for you to get your wake-up call. Mother Nature is pissed. And she's saying, you've been treating me and yourself poorly, and now I'm going to give you something that's going to demand your focus, change your behavior and the way you are, so we can all live in more harmony. And me, frankly, I look out my window, I see kids on bikes, and I see kids riding hopscotch on the roads. I kind of like some of the changes. So I'm pretty passionate about what's going on, But there's a part of me, I write it in my book, rule number 10 is there is always a way, David. In life, there is always a way. Always. It is our job to find that way. And if you lack the ability to find that way, you need to surround yourself with people or resources or books or podcasts that can help you find the way. Because there are people that are coming through this stronger, better than ever, and some that are going to come out just the same or worse. You got to choose which end you want to be on.
Wow, very, very profound. And I could not agree more. So 2 final questions for you. The final question is all the cool resources, links, programs, every way that people can get in touch with more and better and bigger Rock Thomas. But second to last question, if folks were to take one central idea away from our conversation today about personal and professional development, growth, success, strength, leadership, what do you hope that one central core idea might be?
I think that people, if they would choose to say yes to things that are outside of their comfort zone, they'll find that dormant parts of them will come alive. Most of the time, people are trying to fit the how into the what. They're like, well, if I knew how to build a business, I would do it. If I knew how to exercise at home and I can't go to the gym anymore, then I'd stay in shape. If I knew how to communicate through social media and do all those things, I'd build myself a YouTube channel. The how stops people. So what I've learned in life is you first say yes to the what. You say, yes, I want to create a YouTube channel and I want to be the next person that teaches basket weaving on YouTube. You say yes to that. And you go, yeah, but now I have no clue how to do it. Great. Let the games begin. You begin to research. You talk to people. You look around. And I subscribe to 2 things. Develop your work ethic. I grew up on a farm, so I was very fortunate. It was bred into me. And the second thing is be passionate about learning/feedback. So as you develop your YouTube channel in this example and you know nothing, well, then why don't you just record a video and put it on YouTube and see what happens? I did one and I found out that I put some music in the background that was like, Elton John or something, and they wouldn't let me post it. Well, guess what? I got feedback learning you can't do that. So when you are passionately curious, feedback is something you want to eat every meal. So with work ethic and with a shining goal outside of what you are today, just say yes and figure it out later. Say yes and figure it out later. Say yes and figure it out later and have fun along the way.
Tremendous. Now, even with that anthem, especially with that anthem, I know that people want to get connected and stay connected to more Rock Thomas. Where can we send them? We're going to put this in the show notes, in the links, right under this episode at thespeakingshow.com. But Rock has some cool things that you need to look at, that you need to get involved in. Rock, where can we send people to get in touch with more you?
Well, of course, they can go to the I Am Movement podcast where they'll catch a bunch of cool interviews and stuff. They can go to rockthomas.com where they'll get my free book and they can start working on the 5 steps to change and grow their identity. And then my YouTube channel. Got a lot of cool stuff there. Years I've been doing this. Now it's over 10 years I've been posting. And they can also, of course, go to Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and all that kind of good stuff. And they'll find me under Rock Thomas.
Awesome. Well, this has been a tremendous interview. We have to have you back. I know we only scratched the surface. And thank you for being with us today.
My pleasure, David. Thank you.
Well, that wraps up another episode of The Speaking Show. Hey, tell you what, if you like us, rate us and review us on iTunes. Subscribe. Tell a friend. Go grab the notes and downloads and extras at thespeakingshow.com. See you next time.